In one of my previous videos, a viewer suggested that perhaps I should do a slower version of an install for those who've never installed before because I go a little bit too fast. Well, in this video, I'm going to do that. I'm going to give you a step-by-step how to install FreeBSD. Right, perhaps the most important step we need to do is to get FreeBSD. So we're going to go into Google. You could use the search engine of your choice, of course. And we're going to type in FreeBSD and it will take us to a load of listings, as you can see. And the first one that comes up is the FreeBSD project. You could click on Get FreeBSD, but it suggests Nomad BSD for some reason. But we're not going to go for them. We're going to go for the top one. So click on the FreeBSD project and it takes us to the home page. And right in the middle, because there's a lot of text flying around there, it gives you information about releases and the old releases and upcoming releases. You don't need none of them. We just need to concentrate on that big yellow bar there. And it says download FreeBSD. And again, we've got lots more text. It just basically outlines the different architectures that are available. And it says that most users of FreeBSD will have hardware or AMD 64 or Arch 64, which is like most Intel and AMD processors, 64-bit, and single board computers like Raspberry Pi. So we need to choose an image, and I'll just scroll up again. We need the latest one, which is release, which is the FreeBSD 14.2 release. You've got lots of installers that you can choose from. You've got AMD 64, as I said above. You've got 386, you've got virtual machine images, you've got SD cards for single board computers. But what we need is the AMD 64 one. And the choice never stops. The thing about FreeBSD, it just gives you a lot of choices to choose from. You can boot only ISOs. You've got Disk 1 ISO. And you've got AMD. And you've got DVD. You've got a memory stick image. And a memory stick mini image. I think if you were installing to a USB, I think you'd choose the memory stick one because I think it's configured to work better on that. Although you could, there's nothing stopping you putting an ISO on. If you obviously write into a disk, if you still do that these days, then an ISO is what you need. And if you're using a virtual machine like VirtualBox, then I think an ISO will do. And that's what we'll download. The DVD is a lot larger than the CD one. It's got a lot of things already on the disk if you perhaps haven't got an internet connection and perhaps you want to install from the disk itself. So we'll let that download and then we'll get on to the next step. So now that you've downloaded the ISO, what are you going to do with it? Well, you could write it to a USB stick using Balena Etcher or Rufus or USB Imager or whatever you prefer. I mean, if you're in the know, you know, as the youngers like to say. I prefer to use DD, which then I write to a USB stick. And the format is, DD if equals some USB image, output file equals to where you want it to go. You have to be perhaps careful with this because you don't want to overwrite an internal drive, but that's how I usually do it. And that works for both USB image and ISO. Like I say, you pick the one which you are most comfortable with. Once that's done, if you're using a real machine, you put it in machine and boot up, select USB and it starts up. But in this case, I'm using VirtualBox, so I have to tell it where I've downloaded the ISO image to, in which case it was RAM disk on this machine. And there it is. So you can download it to wherever you want, whichever direction you feel fit. But you've got to tell your virtual machine that's where it is. So I've created a little virtual machine of FreeBSD 14.2. We're going to start up. But first we need to tweak a few things. I keep forgetting about this. I keep wanting to dive straight in. Going to give it 8 gigabytes of memory, which is way above what we need. And 4 CPUs, which again is way above what we need. I mean, I'm just doing a base install here. We need to set the hard drive size. I'm just going to give you nearly enough 60 gigabytes, again, more than we need. And I think that should be it. So once we're happy with that, if we press finish, and the only thing that we need to do now is start the machine up. Again, this mirrors if you was using a real machine with a USB or a CD or DVD in the drive. Right, so we're going to start it up. you are welcomed with this little menu boot screen, really. We're not going to go into too much detail about what each of these options are. You've got your boot installer, your boot single user, escape to loader prompt, reboot, cons, video, kernel, and boot options. So basically the top one is what we need. We're going to either let that count down or press enter to go into the installer. Single user, perhaps if you want to fix some things or change some things. Loader prompt, again if you want to tweak some settings before we get going. Reboot will reboot the system or reboot the install disk. Cons video is about how you're connecting to this. You either can use the video as we're doing here, or you can use serial or both, or it depends. Kernel is if you want to, if you've already got a kernel installed or you've already got a separate kernel somewhere and you want to use that, a custom kernel for instance. And boot options are if you want to change ACPI or a few other, if you want to tweak the system, whichever it is. But, we'll do that for a different video. But for now, we just press install. And it will start the install process, or the process to get to the installer. And you get a lot of text flying from the screen. You might be off-putting if you're not used to seeing that, but that's basically what goes on behind the scenes of most Linux distros. It's usually hidden behind a fancy loader screen, splash screen. Anyway, we're in the FreeBSD installer, and it says, welcome to FreeBSD. Would you like to begin an installation or use the live system? The live system is perhaps not what you think it is. It's not like other ones where you get a desktop. It's more or less for rescuing or making changes to already installed installations, or to feel what FreeBSD feels like without committing yourself. You also got shell, which lets you make any pre-install changes to your system, and then install will take you through. So let's have a look at shell first. And it says the shell option can be used to access FreeBSD in order to use a command line utilities to prepare disks before installation. So you've got like a weird setup with a few disks in there, if you perhaps want to partition things, mount something, whatever you want to do, you can do it here and then go back to the installer once you type exit. And you can also see what's on your system anyway, like cam control, dev list, shows you what hard drives or drives in general are connected to your system, which can be useful, if you need to know that. Gpart list, not Gpart, Gpart show, I'll get there in the end. We'll show you the partitioning scheme, etc. of your hard drive. So yeah, back to the installer, and really, like I say, the live system will let you to get a feel of FreeBSD before installing it. There's no GUI, of course, and it says you can also use this live option to carry out repairs on existing installation. So it's kind of useful, really. It's almost like an old-fashioned DOS boot disk or whatever. You could do the same thing. And once you've started the live system, you log in using user root, and there is no password. It's an empty password, and there you can do things like repair drives, etc. Yeah, useful if you need it, and if you need it and it's not there, you'd miss it. But in this instance, we don't need it, so I'm just going to come out of that and back to the installer. And what we do need mainly is just to press enter for install, and that's the default first option. It will take us straight for the keymap selection, and really the default one is the US keyboard map. I mean, that might work for you if you don't change anything, but you're going to notice a few keys are going to be swapped around, which is annoying. Like for me, it's going to be the speech marks and the @ symbol. So if you go down to whichever country suits your taste or your keyboard or wherever you are, for me it's United Kingdom, if I can get there. There's different choices. You can use caps lock that acts as left control. You can MacBook, Dvorak. So you choose the plain one if you're unsure. And again, like say for instance America, you've got lots of choices. You've got left-hand Dvorak and right-hand. It's traditional workstation. That's pretty cool. So it's United Kingdom for me. And you can test whether this will work for you, which is handy, by just perhaps typing in the problem keys. So you can go through all the top, and if they come out as you expect, your keyboard keymap is fine. So it looks all right for me. You press continue. And the next one thing we have to do is to set the host name. Now you can call it whatever you want. There are some naming conventions you might want to follow, perhaps test.local or test.me or whatever you want to. If not, just call it what you want. Right, now for optional components, you got a lot of debugging. You got base debug, you got kernel debug, and lib32 debug. It's just like with the sort of like debugging flags enabled, and it's really, if you're a developer and you want to trace any problems, and this makes it easier. If you're not a developer or you're not interested in that, you don't have to select this. It just will bloat things a little bit if you do. I always deselect kernel debug. Lib32 is if you want to run any older programs, which doesn't add a lot to the size, so you can choose that. Ports, if you want to compile your own ports. But you can do that later and you bring in a more up-to-date ports tree. And again with source, if you're doing something like jails and you want to do the source there. But then again, you can also do that later. And test suite if you want that, which I never choose. So the only thing that we really do need is lib32. And perhaps one of the most important steps is how would you like to partition your disk? You can either go auto ZFS, which then it does everything for you, which is perhaps preferable if you're not confident in doing it by hand or step by step. Or you could use auto UFS, which is a slightly older file system than, say, for instance, ZFS. A few less features, but it's rock solid stable and uses less. It demands less system resources. There is manual disk setup if you are very confident, or you could open a shell and partition by hand, which new. I don't think so. Yeah. So we'll have a look at each one of these. So first off is ZFS configuration. You can have it proceed with installation, change your pull type or disks. Rescan, disk info, change pull name. But first we're going to do disks. If you've only got one disk in, it changes what you can choose here. If you've got lots of disks, you can choose RAID. I've only got one disk in, so I'm going to choose Stripe, no redundancy. Choose the disk, obviously. Rescan it if you had some old disks. Disk information, give you a breakdown of what's available on the disk in the system. Like I say, if you've got more than one disk or two disks or three or four or five, then you can choose one of the RAID options and give yourself some redundancy, some backup. You can change the pool name. You usually leave it at default zroot. Force 4K sectors if you need to. I think most modern drives need to. Encrypt disks, which is useful if you want to password protect your system. Partition scheme if you want GPT or MBR, whatever you want to do. There's a lot of options there. Swap size, might as well leave it as it is. You can change it if you want to almost anything you want to, a sensible size. Mirror swap, yes or no, which is if you want to just make sure that you don't lose your swap file for whatever reason. Or you could encrypt swap with temporary keys. I've never used that, but it might be useful if you need it. Right, so we're not going to proceed. I'm just going to have a look at the other options. Auto UFS, slightly different from the ZFS one. You can use entire disk for partition to share it, or use it. So you can choose entire disk if you want. That will wipe everything off, and you can choose the partition table type if you want to go there. So there's APM, BSD, GPT, and MBR. I think most people will either choose GPT or MBR if you require that. You can partition the UFS manually if you want. It takes you to this little menu. To do it manually, takes you back to look at the same menu. There's one or two things like this. It always takes you back to the same thing. It's like it's described slightly different, but it takes you back to the same options. Yeah, that's if you want to do this by manual means, kind of experts if you wish. It's kind of like we used to have to do this before they brought out this fancy new install. Yeah, sounds like stuck in that now. Get back. And shell is if you want to, oh, I don't know, do partitions to a particular detail. I can't say that I've ever used that, but it's there if you need it. But like I say, most people are going to choose ZFS. And again, let's go back and reiterate that we need to choose Stripe because we've got one disk. And we'll click on install. And it takes you to this little warning. It says, last chance, are you sure you want to destroy the current contents of the following disk? That's like ADA0, which we do. Right, the process of installing doesn't take that long. It depends on what you're installing to, whether it's an old slow mechanical drive. But we'll fast forward it a little bit if it takes too long. Yeah, it's self-explanatory. It will just copy everything over. It copies up the base, the kernel, and the lib32, the one that was selected in the component screen. And it will let you know when it's finished. Right, we need to set up now the root or the admin password. Because without this, you won't be able to do any administration, that type things. So we need to change the password. We need to put a new password in, one that you can remember. But because you can't see the password, you have to make sure you get it right. I'm going to put a password in, and then I'll type in the wrong password and show you what it does. It'll say mismatch, try again, end of file to quit. So we'll type it in and then type the proper one in as well. And now that's root set up, we need to configure a network interface. FreeBSD might have problems with your Wi-Fi, but if you've got an Ethernet connection, it more than likely will pick that up without any problem. And this is where it will usually reside. It says, would you like to configure IPv4? Most people will probably say yes. If you say no to IPv4, it will take you straight to the IPv6. And we don't want that. So we're going to go back to IPv4. I would just say yes. Would you like to use DHCP to configure this interface? It will do it automatically for you if you do yes. If you choose no, it will set you so you do it yourself. You put in all the IP and the subnet mask and default router. So you want to choose yes if you're on DHCP. Then it'll suggest, do you want to do IPv6, which no, I don't. So I'm going to select no for that. And here we are with the resolver configuration. It's filled it in through the DHCP. If you want to add something else, you can here. If you want to add another DNS server, I'm not going to do that, but you can if you want. It's probably recommended if you do so, just in case you've got anything that fails. Time zone, well, you can either choose UTC, if you want to, or you choose the time zone where you live. So for me, it would be in Europe, if I can get there. And then you choose a country or region. So it's United Kingdom, if I can find it at the bottom. There we go. You can choose whichever one you want, of course, but for me it's United Kingdom. And does abbreviation BST look really? It does for me, yes. And if the time and date is set right, you just can skip this. But if you need to change anything, you can go up to the, because it says it should be 1811 at the moment. So if you go up there, you can change, that's the time, and then you press set time. In startup services, you can choose whatever you want to automatically run in the background when you start up, surprisingly. It's entirely up to you, of course. SHHD if you want that. Mouse if you want that, if you've got a funky mouse setup. NTPD for automatically setting your system clock. PowerD if you want to save power or make things run maximum. Dump dev, I always get rid of. So it's entirely up to you, of course. It's whatever you want. System hardening is where we can make the system a little bit more secure. It's not going to be up perhaps to the levels of OpenBSD, but we can have a little go. You can hide processes running as other users, hide processes running as other groups, hide processes running in jails, disable reading kernel messages for unprivileged users, disable process debugging facilities for unprivileged users, randomize the PID of newly created processes, clean the temp file system on system startup, disable opening syslog-d. You can, I always do that. You can enable console password and disallow dtrace. So I usually do these all the way up to random process IDs, and that's usually enough for me. Right, so we're just going to buzz through this firmware install because it's not going to install anything. It may come up with something for you, but, your situation might be different. Would you like to add users to the installed system? Yeah, and there's no point in saying no because otherwise, no one's going to be using it. So, add users. So, you put in a username. It's usually lowercase, whichever name you want. It can be as long as you want. There's no limit, I don't think. But the shorter version of your full name would usually do, and in lowercase. And your full name is usually, written uppercase, a mixture of lowercase. If you want to, you don't have to do that, of course. User ID, leave for defaults. You can leave many of these for defaults. So we're going to leave UID for default. Login group is left at default. Invite to other groups. You want to do this. The first one I usually do is wheel. That enables you to use SU or doas or sudo or whatever to gain admin privs. So if you don't have to log out, log into root and then log out again. Operator, so it allows users to deal with devices and stuff like that. I also put in video, which allows the user to interact with graphics, say for instance, your NVIDIA drive and stuff like that. The login class will leave as default. The shell is default to SH. You can change that to whatever you want. Home directory, again, leave as default. It kind of makes sense to name it after your name. Leave empty for default, directory permissions, so you can get in there and no one else can really do anything. Enable ZFS encryption, which might be useful of your home directory, but you don't have to do that. Use password-based authentication. Yes, you want to better put a password to log into your own account. Create an empty password, which is not recommended. Use a random password. Well, you could, but you're going to have to remember it. Or if not, then put a password that you can remember. And like the root password, it doesn't show you what you're typing, so you have to get it right. And don't forget. It says lock out the account after creation. No, you don't want to do that. And is everything okay? Yep. It gives you a quick rundown of what we entered. If you're happy with that, you can just press enter for the default yes. And if you want to add another user, type yes. If not, then just press enter. Right, here's the last chance to change anything. And you can go down all the menus that we've seen so far individually and change something there if you want. Which is kind of useful because it kind of, you know what I mean? Because you think, oh, did I do that right or did I add that? If there's any, and you can install Handbook as well, but most people will look it online. Yeah, so if you're happy with everything, you can just press enter. And this is the last chance to change anything. So the installation is now finished. Before exiting, then would you like to open a shell and make any final manual modifications? No. But what I do tend to do is, rather than sort of like rebooting the system and quickly taking out the USB stick or image, etc., so you don't repeat the entire process again, I usually go into the shell, just press yes, and then I can just shut down the system, like shut down -P now. It'll shut down the computer, and then you can remove the image or remove the USB stick at your own leisure before starting the system up again. It just stops you from mad rushing it. I always used to try and time it in to get there before it restarted, but I do it this way now. So once the system is shut down, I'll remove the ISO image from VirtualBox, and we'll restart the newly installed FreeBSD. Right, we are going to remove the ISO image, and there's the FreeBSD image we downloaded. So we're just going to remove that, remove, and OK. And now we can boot the system without having to go install it again. Right, so it's booting up now. And we'll get there. There won't be much to see. Because it's command line, you're not going to see any GUI menus greeting you. You're just going to get login. There we go. And you type in your created user that we put in before, and your password if you can remember it. And there we go. There's FreeBSD. It's, yeah. And there's the start of your journey. Now, from now on, you can install a GUI, all the applications you need, and make a nice desktop or a server. Anyway, hopefully you like this video. God, it was a long video. I've been talking for quite a while. If you found this video useful, then please consider giving it a thumbs up. If you've given one or two of my videos a thumbs up, then consider subscribing. And if you do subscribe, then please don't forget to hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos I release. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. This and every other video on my channel has been made using FreeBSD and open source software.